Have you ever looked around at your life and felt like something doesn't quite fit, like you're playing a role that someone else assigned to you? You wake up, go through the motions, smile when you're supposed to, and do what's expected, but deep down, there's this strange emptiness. A quiet voice you can't quite hear, a longing for something you can't name, almost like you're wearing a costume, walking through a world that feels foreign, living a life that doesn't quite belong to you. That feeling isn't random. That discomfort, that inner pull, it's not just stress or boredom or dissatisfaction. It's the beginning of a memory trying to surface. Not the kind of memory stored in your brain, but a memory buried in your soul. A memory of who you really are beneath all the noise. And the truth is, your soul has never forgotten you have. But it didn't happen all at once. You weren't born this way. You came into this world wide open, radiant, whole, and deeply connected. You knew things without learning them. You saw beauty in places adults had long forgotten. You trusted yourself completely. You felt energy, picked up moods without words, looked up at the stars and somehow remembered them. But slowly, the world started placing weights on you. That's just your imagination. Stop being so sensitive. You're too much. Be realistic. And with every comment, every rule, every disapproving glance, you began to shrink, to doubt, to hide parts of yourself. You learned which masks were acceptable. You learned how to blend in. You started living from the outside in instead of the inside out. The more you conformed, the quieter that inner voice became. Until one day, you couldn't hear it anymore, or so you thought. But it's still there. It never left. It's the ache you feel at night when everything goes quiet. It's the moment of hesitation when someone asks you what you truly want and you don't know how to answer. It's the pull in your chest when you see someone living freely and you wonder, why can't I? It's the chills you get when a truth hits you, even if you don't fully understand it. That's your soul, knocking, not gently but with urgency, because it's time to remember. The forgetting wasn't your fault. It was carefully designed. From the moment you were born, a silent system began its work not to help you, but to bury you. Not physically, but energetically. To veil your inner knowing. To distract you, divide you, disempower you. You were taught facts, not wisdom. You were taught rules, not truths. You were taught to worship things outside of you instead of trusting the universe within. And most people live their entire lives under this spell, never questioning the script, never wondering why the life they're told to want doesn't satisfy them. But you're not most people. Otherwise, you wouldn't be hearing this now. The real question isn't whether your soul is speaking to you. The real question is, are you finally ready to listen? Because once you start listening, everything changes. You begin to notice the cracks in the illusion. You feel the weight of the roles you've been playing. And most of all, you sense the truth rising in you like a tide. The truth that you are so much more than you've been told, that you didn't come here to conform, you came here to awaken. Now imagine this. You're in a dream, but you don't know it. Everyone in the dream is playing their part, doing what they've been programmed to do, believing what they've been taught. No one questions the dream, they just live it. But then, something strange happens. A tiny glitch. A moment that doesn't fit. You see a symbol, hear a phrase, feel a vibration, and it wakes something in you. You pause. You look around and realize, this isn't real, or at least not the full picture. That's the beginning of awakening. That's the beginning of remembering. And it all starts with the smallest crack in the illusiona crack your soul has been patiently waiting for you to notice. There's a name for what you've been experiencing your whole life without realizing it. Spiritual amnesia, a forgetting so deep, so complete, that most people never question it. They believe the version of reality they were handed. They believe their limits are real. They believe they are small, fragile, ordinary. And that belief becomes a cage. But this amnesia wasn't random, it was planted, intentionally, because a soul that remembers is unstoppable. A soul that remembers cannot be manipulated, cannot be bought, cannot be controlled. So the world made you forget. The conditioning started early. Schools taught you how to memorize, but not how to feel. You were graded on facts, never on intuition. You were taught to obey rules, but never taught how to listen to your inner voice. Society told you what success looks like, but never asked you what lights you up. You were given templates, molds, label sand, punished for stepping outside them. Every time you silenced your instincts to fit in, another veil was placed over your eyes. Every time you swallowed your truth to avoid rejection, another thread in the web tightened, and eventually, you forgot what it even felt like to be fully yourself. You stopped dreaming freely. You stopped dancing without reason. You stopped hearing your soul's language. And yet, it never truly stopped speaking. You just learned to tune it out. But some part of you has kept listening. The part of you that cries during music you can't explain. The part that feels homesick for a place you've never been. The part that knows there's more, even if you don't know what more means yet. That part is ancient, and that part is about to lead you home. Because there's a way out of this amnesia. There's a technique simple but powerful that can unlock the memory you didn't know you still carried. Not just a memory of past lives or mystical truths. A memory of who you are, who you've always been, and why you came here now, at this exact moment in history. And once you remember, you'll never forget again. There have been moments in your life that seemed too strange to ignore, retiny flashes that pierced through your routine and made you stop, even for a second. You thought of someone you hadn't spoken to in years, and they suddenly messaged you. You were lost in thought, trying to find an answer, and then a stranger said exactly what you needed to hear. You kept seeing the same number sequence again and again on receipts, clocks, street signs, as if the universe was gently but insistently tapping your shoulder. Most people shrug these off. They call them coincidences, but deep down, you knew better. You felt it in your gut. These weren't random. They were sign-coded messages from something deeper, something ancient, something you. Because long before the rational mind started filtering everything, your soul communicated through patterns, feelings, dreams, symbols, and frequencies, and it still does. The problem is never that the soul stopped speaking. The problem is that you were never taught to recognize its language. Every weird coincidence you've brushed off, every dream you couldn't forget, every pattern that kept returning with uncanny precision, that was your soul reaching out, trying to get your attention, trying to remind you that life isn't just linear and logical. It's layered, multidimensional. Your waking life is only one part of a much bigger reality, and once you start decoding the signs, you realize you've been living in a conversation with the universe all along. The reason you're seeing repeated numbers like 111, 222, or 444 isn't just some spiritual fad. Numbers are vibrational blueprints. Your soul uses them like coordinates, breadcrumbs to steer you back to alignment. You're not going crazy, you're waking up. And then there are the dreams. Not the chaotic ones that fade after your alarm rings, but the ones that stick with you, the dreams that feel more real than waking life. You've had them, haven't you? Dreams where you know you're not just imagining. Dreams where you're in places you've never seen but feel like home. Dreams where you speak languages you've never learned, know people you've never met, perform skills you've never studied. These are not random firings of a sleeping brain. These are fragments, portals, windows into other versions of you. Some are memories of past lives. Others are glimpses of futures still in motion. Some are snapshots of parallel timelines where you made different choices. And your soul is bringing them into your awareness, not to confuse you but to remind you, to show you how vast you truly are, to help you piece together your full identity, which has always been far greater than the story you've been living. You see, the more you pay attention to these signs, the more frequent they become, and they evolve. At first, there's subtly strange synchronicity here, a vivid dream there. But once you start noticing, once you stop dismissing them, your soul responds like an echo chamber. It begins to send louder, clearer signals. The signs become too specific to ignore. The timing becomes undeniable. And before you know it, you're no longer reacting to the signs, you're following them, trusting them, using them. That's when the shift begins. That's when remembering becomes unavoidable. And as this remembering deepens, you'll notice something even stranger. The world around you starts to feel unfamiliar. It's as if everything that used to feel normal now feels artificial. You watch people chasing things that no longer make sense to you: titles, approval, possessions, and you feel like a tourist in someone else's game. Conversations seem shallow. The news sounds like noise. The routines that once gave you comfort now feel like cages. It's not because you're becoming negative or cynical. It's because you're waking up in a dream where most people are still asleep. You're beginning to see the illusion for what it is, and once you do, it's impossible to unsee. This isn't arrogance. It's not about feeling better than others. It's about remembering that you're not from here, at least, not in the way you were taught. Your soul is not limited to this life, this identity, this body. That disconnection you feel, that sense of not fully belonging, is because you're multidimensional. You exist across realms, across timelines. The version of you watching this is just the tip of the iceberg. Your true self spans beyond space and time. You're not broken. You're not lost. You're remembering your true home. That feeling you've always had that you were meant for more isn't ambition. It's remembrance. You've felt it since you were a child. Before the conditioning. Before the fear. Before the veils. You used to wonder about the stars. You used to feel energy in places and people. You used to know things without knowing how. And then you were told to grow up, to get serious, to stop dreaming. But your soul never agreed. It just waited, quietly, until the right moment came to shake you, wake you, whisper in your ear that you've been asleep long enough. And now here you are, not by accident. You're hearing these words because something inside you is already stirring, something ancient, something powerful. The moment you stop pretending that the signs are coincidences, the moment you stop forcing yourself to fit into a world that doesn't resonate with your essence, that's the moment you begin your return. And once you begin, there's no going back. You came here with codes inside you, frequencies, blueprints, a mission, and the forgetting was part of the journey. But the remembering, that's your return to truth. You were never lost. You were hidden in plain sight. But now, your soul is stepping forward, and everything you've ever felt but couldn't explain is about to make perfect sense. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why the most important knowledge, the kind that could completely change the way you see life, the kind that could awaken your true self, is always hidden, distorted, or ridiculed? Why is it that you're taught how to calculate equations, memorize historical dates, or follow rules, but never how to hear your soul, access your inner power, or understand the energy that flows through everything? That's not an accident. It's design. From the moment you arrive in this world, you're plugged into a system that rewards conformity and punishes questioning. A system that tells you what to believe, how to behave, and who to become. And the moment you step outside that script, you're labeled a dreamer, a rebel, even dangerous. But why would someone who seeks truth, connection, and self-awareness be seen as dangerous? Because someone who remembers who they are cannot be controlled. Control is the cornerstone of this reality. Not truth, not freedom, and certainly not self-realization. Think about it: what happens when a human being fully awakens? When they stop living from fear and start living from truth, they no longer obey blindly. They no longer chase illusions. They no longer depend on systems designed to keep them small. They become self-generating. They create instead of consume. They listen to their own inner authority instead of begging for external validation. They heal. They inspire. They wake others up. And nothing terrifies the old systems more than that. So the most powerful truths about energy, intention, vibration, multidimensionality, the soul are buried under layers of distraction, wrapped in dogma, turned into entertainment, mocked by mainstream voices, or reserved for the so-called elite, while the masses are told it's all nonsense. But the irony is, they didn't need to lock you in a cage. They only needed to convince you that the cage was real. They didn't need to steal your power. They just had to make you forget you had any. And so, you were taught to laugh at what your soul instinctively knows. You were taught to seek proof for what can only be felt. You were taught that the invisible isn't real, even though the most important forces in life, like love, intuition, consciousness, can't be measured or touched. You were taught to reject the mystical and worship the logical. But deep down, you always knew that something was missing. What they never told you is that remembering who you are isn't a belief, it's a return. A return to what you knew before the world taught you not to know it. And that return begins with something deceptively simple. It begins with a trick so ancient, so powerful, it's been passed down in secret for thousands of years. Not because it's complicated, not because it's reserved for special people, but because it's incredibly effective and very hard to control someone who has used it. This trick doesn't require years of study. It doesn't require religion. It doesn't even require that you believe in anything outside yourself. All it asks is that you stop, breathe, and ask a question you were never taught to ask. A question that holds the key to every truth your soul has ever known. Who am I, really? And this is where everything changes. Because the moment you ask that question with sincerity, not with your intellect, but with your entire being, you trigger something deep inside. You activate a memory that bypasses the mind and goes straight to the soul. It's not a memory of facts or timelines. It's a vibrational memory, a frequency, a feeling of home. And once that door cracks open, your reality begins to shift. But here's where the so-called forbidden part comes in. This trick, this technique, this ritual, whatever name you give, it is not forbidden because it's evil or dangerous. It's forbidden because it makes you free. It collapses the illusion. It makes the lies obvious. It dissolves fear. And in a world built on fear, someone who is fearless is revolutionary. That's why it's hidden. That's why it's mocked. That's why, for most of your life, you were told to ignore the very things that could liberate you. What no one told you is that you were born with a built-in guidance system, a kind of inner compass that is constantly trying to steer you back to yourself. Every time you felt out of place, every time you questioned the rules, every time you stared at the stars and felt a mysterious longing, you were tuning into that system. You were tapping into a deeper truth. The forbidden trick simply removes the static. It strips away the interference. It reminds you that you were never disconnected. You were just distracted. So what is this trick, really? It's not a secret ceremony or a complicated doctrine. It's a process of intentional remembering, a pattern of breath that aligns you with your true vibration, a sequence of thoughts and sounds that bypasses your conditioned mind, a quiet moment where you drop every identity, every label, every expectation, and ask the one question the system is terrified you'll ask: who was I before they told me who to be? It might sound simple, but the effects are seismic. You begin to feel energy again, not just around you, but in you. You begin to hear the subtle language of intuition. You start seeing meaning where others see coincidence. You begin dreaming vividly. You feel called to certain people, certain places, certain messages, as if a deeper version of you is orchestrating it all. And that's because it is. You remember what it felt like to trust yourself, to feel without filters, to walk without fear. The forbidden trick isn't really a trick at all. It's your soul's original language. A process of clearing, not adding, releasing, not accumulating. You don't become something new. You remember what was always there, waiting, watching, whispering through the chaos. And once you hear it, once you feel it, once you know, you can't go back, because nothing else feels true anymore. And from that moment on, your life will no longer be about survival. It will be about creation, alignment, expression, freedom. You'll stop chasing things that were never yours to begin with. You'll let go of roles that no longer fit. You'll say no to what drains you, and yes to what feeds you. Not out of rebellion, but out of resonance. You'll begin living from the inside out, guided not by fear or habit, but by the infinite intelligence that lives in your bones. Because the greatest trick was never about hiding the truth. It was about convincing you it didn't exist. But the moment you stop searching outside and start remembering within you, take your power back. And that, above all else, is what they never wanted you to discover. People wait their whole lives for the right moment, the right sign, the right level of confidence. They wait for the perfect alignment of circumstances to finally begin something real, to change, to awaken, to listen to the voice they've spent years trying to silence. But what if the right moment isn't something you wait for? What if it's something you choose? What if the timing has always been now? You didn't find this message by chance. You didn't click play out of boredom. You're here because your soul is tired of waiting. You've already seen too much, felt too much, known too much to go back to sleep. This isn't about forcing change. This is about recognizing that your awakening has already started. The cracks in your old life aren't accidents, they're signals. Every moment that doesn't satisfy you anymore, every interaction that feels hollow, every dream that stirs something you can't explain, those are the alarms ringing, not to scare you but to tell you it's time. You've outgrown the version of yourself that you've been pretending to be. The mask is too tight now, the routine too lifeless, the illusion too thin. You can feel it, can't you? That restless pull, that stirring in your chest when the world gets quiet, that sense that something is coming, or maybe something is already here, just waiting for you to open your eyes wide enough to see it. You don't need more proof. You don't need permission. You don't need to be fixed or saved or made more worthy. You are already enough to begin. The moment you decide to turn inward, to trust that inner nudge, you create a ripple, not just in your life, but in your frequency, your reality, your timeline, and the universe responds instantly. It has been waiting for you to say yes. The truth is, every time you ignored your intuition, every time you shut down a strange dream, every time you pushed away a coincidence that felt like more than chance, you didn't stop the signs. You only delayed your response to them. The signs have been constant. The path has always been beneath your feet. And now, you're beginning to feel it again, not in your mind, but in your bones. A remembering so deep it doesn't speak in words, it speaks in vibration. This is the moment where the timeline splits. The old version of you is still available, still waiting with familiar distractions and predictable outcomes, but the new path, the one that vibrates with your true essence, says, calling louder than ever. And you know deep down that staying asleep is no longer an option, not because someone told you to wake up, but because something inside you simply can't stay silent anymore. And here's the beauty of it. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know your entire mission. You don't need to see the full picture. All you need to do is start. Take one breath. Say one truth. Follow one feeling. Because the path to remembering doesn't unfold all at once. It reveals itself as you walk. The more you trust it, the clearer it becomes. The more you follow the pull, the more the world begins to reshape around you. Synchronicities increase, old weights fall away. The universe stops resisting you and starts flowing through you. Because you're no longer trying to control reality, you're aligning with it. And this alignment begins to awaken something profound. A memory not of past events, but of your original state. The you before the roles, before the trauma, before the layers of expectation. A version of you that was never confused, never afraid, never disconnected. That you still exists, not as a fantasy or potential, but as a present reality waiting for you to peel back the noise and return. And once you begin to remember, not just mentally, but energetically, everything starts to shift. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop doubting and start listening. And you stop searching for yourself in other people, places, or achievements because you've come home to your center. This is what reconnecting with your cosmic memory feels like. It's not like remembering a dream or recalling a childhood event. It's remembering what you've always been beneath the surface. It's recognizing yourself in ancient symbols, in sacred sounds, in the stillness between thoughts. It's feeling your entire body respond to truths your mind doesn't yet understand. And you begin to see life differently. Not as a series of accidents, but as a mapone that your soul designed long before this life began. Imagine every challenge you've ever faced was actually a coded lesson. Every heartbreak, every detour, every loss a mirror, designed to reflect something deeper back to you. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. You were collecting pieces of your memory through every experience, building a mosaic of understanding, of depth, of resilience. And now, the pieces are starting to come together. You're seeing patterns, connections, a sacred order behind the seeming chaos. That's not coincidence. That's your multidimensional intelligence activating. You begin to notice that your thoughts shape your world faster, that your emotions are tools, not obstacles, that your energy speaks louder than your words. And you begin to access something even deeper, a state of awareness where past, present, and future collapse into now. And knowing that you are not just a person remembering, you are a soul orchestrating the remembering. You're both the seeker and the guide, the path and the one walking it. And the further you walk, the more undeniable your truth becomes. You'll remember past lifetimes not necessarily as names and dates, but as frequencies and lessons. You'll recognize people not by logic, but by vibration. You'll meet someone and know you've known them before. You'll visit a place for the first time and feel like you're returning. You'll feel guided, not by what makes sense, but by what feels true. That's how cosmic memory works. It doesn't ask for permission, it pulses through you until you listen. And you'll start receiving downloads, information that seems to come from nowhere, yet feels more accurate than anything you've been taught. You'll begin dreaming in symbols, hearing guidance in silence, seeing beyond the physical into the energetic. Not because you're special, but because you're open. Because this is your nature. This is the real you, unveiled, unfiltered, unbound. The truth is, you never lost yourself. You were never broken. You were never disconnected. You were simply navigating the maze of forgetting on purpose, because your soul chose this, not as punishment, but as preparation. You knew that in forgetting, you would gain depth. In suffering, you would gain compassion. In limitation, you would grow strength. And in remembering, you would rise. Now is the time to rise, to shed the old programming, to honor every sign, to breathe deeply into the unknown. Because the greatest discovery is not something outside you, it's the moment you finally say, I remember. And from that moment on, nothing is ever the same. It begins in stillness, not the kind of stillness you get from sitting quietly in a room, but the kind that happens inside you when everything unnecessary finally falls away, when the noise stops, when your mind runs out of excuses, when you're no longer trying to impress, prove, or escape. That's when you're ready. Not when you've mastered anything, not when you've become some perfected spiritual version of yourself. You're ready the moment you decide to drop the masks, even for a second, and just be. That's the entry point. That's the gateway. And what comes next is a practice that looks simple, but holds the power to collapse illusions and realign your entire reality in one moment of remembrance. The ritual doesn't come from any religion. It doesn't belong to any group, any teacher, any book. It belongs to your soul. It was embedded in your spiritual DNA long before your first breath in this life. You've used it before, in other bodies, other times, other lifetimes, and now it's surfacing again because you're finally ready to remember. This practice isn't about believing, it's about experiencing. It's not about worshipping something outside of yourself. It's about returning to what you already are. All it requires is your presence, your breath, and your willingness to meet yourself without filters. Start by finding a space where you won't be interrupted, not because the space itself is sacred, but because you are. You are the temple. You are the altar. You are the access point to everything you seek. Sit in a way that feels rooted, strong, relaxed. Let your body become heavy and grounded, like a mountain remembering it was never meant to move for anyone. Then begin to breathe deep, slow, intentional. Let each inhale pull you inward, and each exhale strip away a layer that doesn't belong. Breathe not to survive, but to awaken. Now enter the rhythm of remembering. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. It might feel unfamiliar at first, but your body knows. Your cells recognize this sequence. This breath pattern isn't random, it's a frequency match. It opens the brain. It softens the ego. It shifts your vibration from beta to theta, from surface to soul. Do it 21 times. No more, no less. By the time you reach the final breath, something inside you will already have changed. You'll feel space, clarity, an opening. And that opening is where the magic begins. Now silently repeat the mantra. So, sat, ta, na, ma. Each syllable is a key, unlocking memory locked in your field for lifetimes. These are not just sounds, They are frequencies that resonate with different aspects of your soul's journey. So is the beginning, the universal source. Ta is your birth, your becoming. Na is your transformation, the process of breaking down. Ma is your death not of the body, but of illusion. Together, they activate remembrance. Whisper them inside your mind for 11 minutes. Don't force it. Let them fall into the rhythm of your breath, like waves crashing against a timeless shore. As the mantra pulses, you may begin to feel things, sensations, emotions, images. You may see colors behind closed eyes. You may feel heat in your spine or tingling in your hands. You may see places you've never visited but feel homesick for. You may hear names, voices, melodies that have no origin in this world. You may cry for reasons you don't understand. Laugh at memories you never lived. Don't try to make sense of it. Don't analyze. Just receive. Your soul is showing you who you are. It speaks in feeling. It speaks in vibration. And this is how it remembers. And then, when the noise clears and the waves settle, ask the question. Ask not with your voice, but with your entire being. Ask with your chest open, your mind quiet, your soul leaning forward. Who am I really? Then wait. Not impatiently, not anxiously. Wait like a student before a master. The answer may not come in words. It may arrive as a feeling, a flash, a knowing that overrides logic. It may not make sense at first, but you will know it's real. You might hear a name. You might see a version of yourself from a long-forgotten life. You might receive a vision of who you came here to be. Trust it. That first answer, no matter how strange, is the real one. Everything else after that is your mind trying to catch up. When the answer arrives, seal it. Say out loud, I recognize who I am. I accept who I am. I honor who I am. These aren't just affirmations, they are declarations to your soul, your body, and the universe. They set the frequency. They lock the truth into your field. They signal to every dimension that your memory has returned. And then, breathe. Slowly, come back. Don't rush. Don't jump to your phone or distract yourself. Stay in the stillness for a while. Let your nervous system adjust. Let your field settle. Let your body catch up to the energy you just remembered. And here's what's important. This ritual is not a one-time event. It's a doorway you can walk through again and again. Each time you return to it, you go deeper. Each time, you unlock more. At first, you might access flashes of insight, a brief connection, a subtle shift. But over time, the veil thins. The gap between your human self and your soul self closes. And one day, the ritual won't feel separate from your life anymore. It will be your life. You will live in a state of ongoing remembrance. You will breathe as the ritual, walk as the ritual, speak as the ritual. And something even greater begins to happen. Once you remember, your presence starts to affect others, without trying, without forcing, without preaching. Just by being who you are, you activate people around you. You'll notice them change when they're near you. You'll see them open up, question things, feel things they haven't felt in years. That's because a remembered soul carries a different frequency, one that pierces through illusion, one that awakens by resonance, one that whispers to others, it's time to remember too. Your relationships shift, not always easily but truthfully. Some people will leave your life, not because something went wrong, but because they are no longer aligned with your vibration. Others will arrive suddenly, perfectly, as if they were waiting for you to remember who you are so they could finally find you. Opportunities come that match your soul's purpose, not your ego's plans. Synchronicities multiply. You start to live not by effort, but by flow, not by fear, but by intuition. You stop surviving and begin creating. Not in small, cautious steps, but in bold, aligned movements that feel like destiny. And most of all, you stop searching. You stop chasing meaning in places that were never meant to hold it. You stop outsourcing your truth to systems, labels, teachers, or traditions. Because you've found what you were really looking for all along, yourself. The real you, the ancient you, the infinite you, The version that can see through this dream with clarity, grace, and power. That's the gift of remembering. Not just clarity, but liberation. Not just information, but embodiment. And once you reach this place, you don't need constant reminders. You don't need convincing. You carry the truth in your aura. It hums in your voice. It moves in your walk. It emanates from your eyes. You've become the living proof of what's possible when a soul breaks the spell of forgetting and dares to return to itself. And from this point on, you're not waiting for the world to change. You are the change. You're not looking for signs, you're creating them. You're not hoping for miracles. You are the miracle. The memory has returned. The codes are active. And the life that's unfolding now isn't one you inherited. It's one you came here to build. One breath at a time. One truth at a time. One awakened moment after another. Forever expanding. Forever remembering.